After a very long day of fun, a smelly and drunken Temba took a bus to go home and sat next to a well-dressed, dignified woman. She turned to him and said, "You're going straight to hell, sir." "Oh, damn it! Driver, stop the bus," Temba screamed. "I'm on the bloody wrong bus."
That's such a dad joke.
Shut up. I'm still doing my intro here. Good evening, folks, and welcome to Fame and Fortune on Talk with Rams Live on this happy Sharpeville Day, whatever you choose to call it. I insist on calling it Sharpeville Day. I hope it has been a good long weekend so far. I know it's the end of it, which means the whiskey and the wine is over. Thank you for choosing to join us on this 30 minutes of, I still say, the most powerful digital content this side of the equator, at least. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. I'm also on Instagram, but not connected with the guest on Instagram because it gives us trouble when we do that multiple platforms. So if you want to see my guest, connect to Facebook or YouTube. You can also talk to us via WhatsApp on voice notes. What's our WhatsApp number? 067, keep on forgetting this number. 067-271-8239. Thank you, Fred. And please participate on Twitter. Our handle there is Talk with Rams 1. Send us your questions, send us your comments, and let's have fun on Fame and Fortune. Now, my guest tonight is a friend, a colleague, and let me not digress. Melanie Bala is a veteran broadcaster with nearly 3 decades of experience in television and radio. She's worked for both the SABC as well as DSTV, the series channel, hosting her own talk show, Let's Chat. So I'm going to chat to somebody who does chat, so it becomes slightly easy. In fact, I can tell you how easy it gets. She connected much longer than all of our guests do because she understands broadcasting. People come in late here like, look, did I say that? Don't tell him. She's currently on Metro FM's lunchtime show, Lunch with Thomas and Pearl, as a contributor and news anchor. I'm not too sure we should be introducing her as that. She's a standalone broadcaster in her own right, but I suppose I stole this from her own profile. She's built a very strong social media following. If I had a quarter of that, damn, I would be probably having a free pair of sneakers by now. And she's talking about things that matter to her with a good dose of humor, motherhood, pop culture, current affairs, mental health, yoga. Hey, she loves yoga. Now she's even a yoga trainer and travel. In fact, she has traveled extensively across South Africa and the continent. And she has actually been talking about it in that platform. She's seen she's been in the continent and Asia too. That I like your Chinese dress, but that's not what we're going to talk. So under the at Mela Travels, no, hashtag Mela Travels, not at, hashtag Mela Travels, she's documented recent trips to Indonesia, Rwanda, Zambia, Ghana, and more. The ageless Melanie Bala joins us tonight. Good evening, my friend, my darling.
Hi, Rams. How are you doing?
Well, a bit unhappy because you've already introduced yourself by laughing before I could introduce you, but it's fine.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's what happens when you're friends with someone. You feel you can just chip in.
No, I love that. It makes it a natural production. Nothing is stilted here. So,
not at all.
What's the secret? How have you stayed 22 for so long?
Gosh, I have no idea. I always say, a big part of it is genetics. Like, I cannot take responsibility for it. I come from a family of beautiful women who all look amazing for their age. So a big part of it is just genetics, I think. And then, I think as you get older and you start to realize what you could have done differently when you were younger, you start to take care of yourself better. And I think that's just kind of the phase of my life that I'm in right now.
When you get a chance, introduce me to one or two of those women in your family. But let's move on. let's. So, Mel, how do you primarily introduce yourself to people? You're doing everything under the sun. Primarily, how do you describe yourself?
Gosh, that's a difficult one. I think the widest term I would use is broadcaster. That's what I know. My background, as you say, was television for a really long time. And now it's been radio for the last, 17 years. So I'm a broadcaster primarily. And I think the young kids of today would call it a content creator, because by extension, the platforms that we now operate on, you create content, which is like doing a radio show or like doing a TV show. You're coming up with ideas or things you want to talk about, and you're putting it out on those platforms. So, yeah.
It's amazing. We have now, those of us who are radio people have now come to know our faces. Well, you've been on TV, but I realized that after 25 years of doing radio, suddenly, because I do content this way, people now know how I look like. It was always fun not to be known.
Yeah, I always say, you cannot underestimate the power of television. You can be on a commercial for 3 seconds and instantly people will know who you are or recognize you. Like, the power of television, particularly in South Africa, is huge. It's huge.
I did a television thing with Cash Build. I saw it 4 or 5 years ago. I still meet people now who ask me, when are you going to renovate my house? Like, really? I put the name of the program.
Yeah, because they associate you instantly. That association happens and it sticks in people's minds so much that, whenever they see you out and about.
So do you make enough money out of what you do?
Does anyone?
Yeah. Do you make enough money? In all of these things that you do you make enough money to buy yourself food and your children, to take your children to school, and a bottle of wine once in a while?
Well, I think I do. And I appreciate the privilege that it affords me, to have been consistently working in an industry as long as I have. I have been able to build a life for myself and my children, and to be able to take care of us. And I never take that for granted, because, this industry, radio, and by extension television and then broadcasting, is very unpredictable. So I have, and I'm thankful for it.
What's your attitude to the concept that those of us who are in the freelance industry, this fickle industry, do not save enough? And let me before you answer, let me use the words that were used by Lupi when I spoke to him last week. He said, people do not understand that we don't make enough, so that saving is actually a luxury. So, it's just that it looks glamorous and everybody thinks that there's lots of money that's been made and therefore you should have lots of reserves. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people forget the historical context of where we come from, particularly as Black broadcasters in this country. For a really, really long time, Black broadcasters were just underpaid compared to white counterparts. They just were. And so it's been a case of trying to play catch up. But even in that catch up, I think the value of what we do is often not appreciated by the people you do it for. And that can be in the private or the public sector. People think what we do is easy because we make it look easy. And so there isn't value placed on, I always say, if we did what we did in the United States, for example, you have someone like Ryan Seacrest who has a radio show, but he makes millions of dollars a year off of a radio show. I think there are very, very few radio broadcasters in this country who could say they make millions off of radio. And I think that's why we then supplement what we do with all these other things, because as freelancers in this specific industry, you have to cover all those costs yourself. You don't have any benefits. You don't get a medical aid, a housing allowance, a car allowance, a phone. You don't get any of those things. And so you have to, out of your pocket, you got to pay for those things. So the money doesn't go as far as you would like it to, inevitably. It just doesn't. And on that note, have you been able, by any chance, to make any viable investments that
you look into it and you say, I've taken care of a few things going forward?
Well, it depends. The star's watching.
Not those. I'm not talking about those luxury cars that I always see you in. I'm not talking about, the vault where I meet you from time to time where you station a bit of money. I'm talking about
I think it's been a process for me. I was very irresponsible when I was younger, and I always say this because I didn't grow up with an allowance, and so I had no concept of money. Like, I had no concept of money. I started my first job, got paid, and I was like, okay, I need to pay rent apparently, and I was like, wow, okay. So I literally every month would make sure my rent was paid. And my contribution, because we shared a house when I first started working with people who worked in the same space as me, and my contribution towards the household expenses. And I used to box the rest. Like, didn't know about savings. I literally would party. By the 22nd of the month, I'd be broke. And it's been a process for me. I think literally I must have been in my mid-20s where eventually I just said, you know what, this isn't sustainable. I can't keep living like this. I need to figure out how to get better at it. And I'd like to think that I have, that over the years I have invested a little bit in property, which is great. And, put some money away for a rainy day so that, in case anything happens. So I'd like to think I've learned from my mistakes.
Well, I like that story. So I remember when I got my first place to, and boys, unlike girls, want to leave their parents' homes much earlier for whatever nefarious reasons. And I then found this apartment, I still remember, in the middle of downtown Johannesburg, Plain Street. But at the time, it was a different place altogether. People could live there.
Yeah.
But I realized on the first evening after checking in, I had everything I needed. Then I realized, but it's not getting dark. I didn't have curtains.
Like, oh, wait a minute.
Whoa, and, then mom came in handy there, then I realized there should be curtains back home that I can use,
Sure. Particularly now, I think there's so much pressure on young people to have it all together at 23 or 24, to have this great apartment with great furniture and, be living your best life every weekend. And I'm always very open about it because I'm like, that's not really how it works. The people who are able to do that, I feel, are almost the exception to the rule. But for everyone else who's starting out, and it doesn't matter what industry or what profession you're starting out at, there is that initial couple of years where you're trying to find your feet, you're buying stuff for your apartment, all these things, you're learning to manage your life, your money, and it's okay. It's okay.
You answered my next question earlier before I asked it. So I'm going to ask a different question. So I now know that you say fame and fortune are not related. You've answered that question before I asked it. But is there a way, and in today's terms, I look at people on social media who have huge following, who are amazing. Is there a way that they can really monetize their brands, their following, in such a way that it really makes sense, that they have a say on how much they make out of the following they have built?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's been a really interesting learning curve over the last, let's say, about 10 years. So since 2009, because I've been on Twitter since 2009. So one of the early adopters, I got on there. And I think it's been really interesting to witness the growth of social media and how it's changed how people secure the bag, how they get attention, how they operate. And, you can look at the really big names, the Michalis, the Boitis, the Bonangs, all these young women who, and some have come up maybe through a more traditional means of a radio or television, but others have built a brand strictly on social media and are very much in the position to dictate the terms of how they engage with someone who wants to partner with their brand. No, you're not going to tell me clearly, listen, we need you to do X, Y, Z, and she's just going to do it. She decides for herself. She says, this is my brand. This is what I'm about. These are the things that interest me. So if you're going to come to me with a proposal, it needs to make sense, and I need to be paid X amount. And I think that's incredible, because I think it's democratized the process to a large degree. I always say, 20, 25, 30 years ago, there were very specific means and methods to achieving fame. And that was television or radio. And this has really leveled the playing field where it's open to anyone. And you see it with people like a Coconut Kells, who literally gained traction on social media because she was so funny, or a Donovan Goliath. Or, there's countless examples of people, even musicians, who've gotten the attention that they might not necessarily have gotten through the more traditional record company route. So it really has opened the playing field. And I love that, because I think to a large degree, I remember, there were gatekeepers who would allow or not allow access. And now this process has literally said, you know what, if you're talented enough and if you're smart enough and you work hard enough, you can achieve pretty much anything.
And for God's sake, nobody now promises people publicity in return for the brand. I mean, if you're in Mehlali, as you say, or you Bonang, nobody's going to say, oh, do this for us, we're going to give you publicity. Hey, for God's sake, I'm already bringing 2 million people. I'm public enough. You can't be offering me publicity.
We've cut out that middleman, so to speak, that, whether it was the traditional media houses, newspapers, magazines, etc. And it is a shame, because there was attrition on that side. So a lot of those have suffered have suffered losses. But it's so important, to use the catchphrase, to control your narrative. I want you to know what I'm doing. I'm going to tell you. It's not going to be up to someone else.
I love the space where we're in, and the only things I've been cautioning about, I was giving a talk at some corporate recently, and we spoke about social media branding and brand associations and stuff, and I said actually the challenge is not with the brands that want to associate with themselves with social media celebrities that are out there. It's the celebrities to know which brand match what they want to create. And it's very important as an individual to know where you want to be seen and where you belong. Of course, it looks good when somebody throws money at you, but if there's a brand conflict, I always believe it becomes a bit of a problem when I can't locate you. I mean, I use the example of Zoto Abantu, and I'm like, I wouldn't be sure that she wants to be associated with, let's say, Mercedes-Benz. But let's move on. I don't. But have you been broke? Have you ever been broke? since the day you broke into the scene, since the day we got to see you on our television screens and listen to you on radio, has there been a moment where you had no money?
Yes. I remember I just told you that was my 20s, pretty much.
I thought that you worked at Edgar's.
No, in the sense that, like I say, so my first job that I got, I was on Bob TV, right? And like I said, I was 18, literally turned 18 the year I started working, so I was really young. And I was broke all the time. The money would come straight in and the money would go straight out of my account, right? And then I got better at it. But then there was also a period where straight after I had finished with Studio Mix on an SABC, and there was a period of about 6 months before I started working on Metro FM, where I had no income. And I always say being broke is really, it should change how you see money. Because it makes you realize what is important, what isn't. The things that you thought you couldn't live without, you actually can. And it helps you to almost pare down your life to the essentials. And I know, someone listening might think, well, it's easy for you to say. And I get that I speak from a position of having been employed and then unemployed and so on. But I've been there, and it did change how I looked at money and what I spend my money on and what is important to me, without a doubt.
Do those people who say money does not matter, do they know what they're talking about? I mean, so when somebody criticizes Patrice Motsepe,
yeah,
I normally say to them, it's because you don't have his money. When you have his money, you probably will behave like him.
Maybe. Sorry, I missed you there. What was the question?
So the question was, do those people who say money is not that critical, are they smoking something illegal?
No, you know what money is? Money is options. Money gives you the freedom to have options and to make choices. And it's the lack of money that makes you feel incredibly boxed in and like there isn't an out from a situation that you're stuck in when you don't have money, right? And that, of course, then impacts on your mental health and how you're navigating through space. So money gives you, I've got a fly in the house all of a sudden. Sorry about that. Money gives you options. That's what it does. It allows you to make better choices. Whether it's A or B, if you don't have money, you only have A. And so you have to make that choice and you resent it and you're stuck with it, et cetera, et cetera. But money gives you the option to say, actually, B might be better. So it gives you that freedom. So you can't, and unfortunately, we live in a capitalist society. You can't disassociate it completely. But so you have to work out how you navigate it. I don't know if you've seen that documentary on Netflix, the Fran Lebowitz one.
No.
You need to check it out because she's got a great saying in there. She says, I hate money, but I love things. Right? I think that's all of us. I hate having to work for money. I hate having money be the primary driving force behind my decisions. But I do like pretty things. So how do I then find the balance?
Well, because maybe a century ago, clever human being said, it's a means to an end. So, if you like things, that's the end. There has to be a means to get you there, and money does get you there. And by the way, you just said, unfortunately, we live in a capitalist country. People, don't get it wrong. Even in a communist society, there's still a need of money. It may not be in currency form, but there's always a need of some money to get us somewhere.
Sure. It's a necessary evil at this point.
It's a very important thing. I love money, by the way. I just don't have it, but I love it. So, your monthly budget to cover everything you need hangs around 10 Rand a month. And if you have made 12 Rand, you always spoil yourself on the 2 Rand that's extra. But we know that even when you've made 9 Rand, there's always a weakness you have. We call it an extravagance. What's yours?
Gosh, that's an interesting question. I guess my children? I don't know. When there is a little bit extra, then I do tend to, and I won't even say spoil them, because they do understand mom works and, there's X amount of money that only goes so far. So when I do make a bit extra, I'll think, gosh, my daughter did say that she really loved this thing 2 months ago or a month ago that she wanted. And then I'll take that money and actually get that for her, or take them and we'll go on vacation, or, so I think it's between my kids, and when there is a little bit of extra, then it's definitely travel. If I have a little bit of extra money, if it'll get me a ticket to get on a plane, to get out of here, I'm gone.
Except travel is no longer an extravagance for you because it's a source of income, actually.
Well, yes and no, but I've never not traveled because it wasn't paid for or because it wasn't sponsored or whatever else. I'm always going to travel, because that's what brings me joy. That's what makes me happy. So I'm always going to travel, regardless. That's how I see it, you know.
But it's great, though, to have turned it into a source of income. I mean, and that's what I've done. Well, I'm beginning to do with golf. You know, it's my extravagance, it's my hobby, but I have found, and I'm cultivating a way that is going to be a source of income.
Yeah, I think, you know, I've made peace with the fact that I remember years ago, like she's probably 20, 25 years ago, one of the first, remember Oprah used to come out and do these really big events in South Africa, like these, you know, at the convention center and get like 2,000 people in and speakers and stuff. And I remember going to see, it was Iyanla Van Zandt actually, who was at one of those events. So I attended. And something she said then stuck with me. She was like, not everyone is going to make money from what they're passionate about. And it's very important to realize that, right? And that should never, ever preclude you from doing it just because you're not going to make money from it. If you love singing and you don't ever land up having a singing recording career, continue to sing at your local pub because you love it that much. And I think that was something that stuck with me all these years because, like I said, the things that bring me joy, whether I make money from it or not, I'm still going to do it. I won't stop doing it because, well, it's not an income stream, you know?
We're on the same page. I go tell people I got to learn to carry my golf bag because I had to play. I love it so much that if I can't afford a caddy, I'll still find a way to play. I'll buy second-hand balls, but I gotta play. It's very important. I love this thing. If I can make money out of it, that's a bonus. But actually, I'll play it even in a desert.
Yeah.
The desert I'm talking about in this case is Dubai. So. So tell me, if you look at the past almost 3 decades of your work, would you say you've made it?
Yes, I would say I've made it. According to my definition of success, I've made it. I am very happy with where I am. When I look back, I'm very happy at the career I've been able to build, the life I've been able to build for myself, my kids, my family. I get to do things I love. I've had the most amazing experiences across the world, traveling for radio, for television. I've made some wonderful friends in an industry. I can honestly look back and say that I did good. I did good for a career that I never would have thought I would ever end up in. I've done good.
When she said she's made great friends in the industry, folks, that includes me. I'm right there.
Well, you know me a bottle of wine, so. And we're at level 1 now, right? So just saying.
2 last questions, then I'm done with you.
Okay.
You've done all those things. You've traveled. You've met great people like me. You know, you can't forget to get my autograph and stuff like that. You've had wonderful memories in life. But if there's one more thing you'd like to do, what would it be?
Just one?
Just one more thing. We only have 3 minutes left, so one more thing.
Well, I think I'm busy with that now, right? So about 5 years ago, I started practicing yoga when I was going through a difficult period in my life, and it was transformative. And it's been a process where as I do it, and over the years, I've just fallen so in love with it and its benefits that this year I've actually signed, as you mentioned at the beginning, I've signed up to become a yoga teacher. So I'm busy with my training. And I think long-term, you'll find me with my little yoga studio at the beach somewhere. Send me a text, say, Mel, I'm coming down to the coast. I'll be like, hey, pull up, come through, you know. So I think that's, once I complete my teacher training, you know, I'm very excited for where it's going to take me. I'm not sure, but I'm really excited. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to at the moment.
Great. Okay, one last question then.
Mm-hmm.
It's been great. It's been 30 years or so. It's been amazing. I am sure that you have cashed in a measly $1 million over the last.
Dollars?
It's only 15.6 million rand. It's not like
crazy.
Serious money.
15 million rand.
You are not counting. I'm sure you did.
I don't think so.
We're not far from it, though. Once you get the yoga thing right, once you get to the pitch and you get the right clients, you'll maybe make it in a year as compared to 30 years when you could not make it.
Well, let's hope so, friend. Let's hope so.
I trust it. Mel, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you, Ramsey. It's been great chatting to you.
I'm so glad I spoke to you. So I will make good on the coffee now that we've passed this part. It will happen very soon.
I look forward to it. Thank you, friend.
Great stuff. Have a great evening further.
You too.
And you folks, we shall see you tomorrow with Dr. Thando Sibanda tomorrow on Opportunity Tuesday. From me, Rams Mabote, and the fallible, infallible Frederick Mabitsela. Good night and God bless.